Okay, hey, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today we have a review for you that I am very excited to share with you all. Now, I don't do too many digital watches on my channel because I really don't wear too many digital watches. I'm really big into mechanical timepieces and, of course, analog readouts. But every once in a while, a digital watch will come along and just kind of recapture my imagination in terms of what I like to have on my wrist. And this model, of course, is just iconic, and it kind of draws me in the same way that I love, Jordan 1s. They're just such a classic icon. So I do have a collection of those. And when it comes to G-Shock squares and G-Shocks in general, I do have kind of a small collection of G-Shocks. But of course, the square shape and the G-Shock square are really iconic throughout the line, and it's nice that it really ties back to that original kind of first release with the GMWB5000C. Now, a little bit about the brand. Casio was founded back in 1974. Their first watch was the Casio-tron. They are Japanese in origin, but they're really known for their wide range of digital watch offerings, from lines like G-Shock, Edifice, Oceanus, so on and so forth. Now, this is the G-Shock, of course, and they were first launched back in 1983 with the aforementioned model, the GMWB5000C. Now, before G-Shock, watches were generally seen as delicate precision instruments that naturally would or even should break if ever dropped. Now, the development cycle for the first G-Shock involved adding cushioned materials to prototypes and dropping them from a third floor men's restroom, and watching everything break about 10 meters below. They would study and then repair and reinforce and kind of start the cycle over and over again. Their main breakthrough being when the project lead, Kiku Ibe, was inspired by seeing a child bounce a rubber ball, and which that essentially sparked the idea that a unique structure where the module at the heart of the watch floats in the air of a hollow tunnel within the case, which is also really greatly exemplified in this very cool model in that red detail, because you can see kind of that resin or kind of air pocket that is inside of the case in between that and the module. So very cool. Now, a little bit about this type of watch. I consider this, of course, a digital watch, so non-analog digital readout of timing information in terms of key common characteristics and design language. This is the G-Shock GMWB5000TVA, or Virtual Armor Limited Edition. It's made in Japan, and it's from their Full Metal Square series, which inherits much of its genealogy from the original G-Shock GMWB5000C. Now, this is a limited edition model, like I mentioned, and it is inspired by a virtual world. Now, coming straight from the world of video games and science fiction, the bezel and band of this model are laser engraved with the GMWB5000 specs. Furthermore, the laser bored holes reveal the red fine resin below for that kind of futuristic design. The titanium is used to reduce weight, and the surface of the metal is treated with a diamond-like coating, or DLC, for improved wear resistance. Now, in terms of the key features of this model, it does have multi-band 6 atomic timekeeping, Bluetooth smartphone link, as well as it being solar powered. Now, the price is a little up there for a lot of people that are thinking, when they think G-Shock, I think most people think of those 40 to a couple $100 watches, but this one comes in at $1650 direct from Casio, and I would say they're probably going to retail around that because it's still pretty desirable, and it is limited. So was it worth it? Absolutely. I got to thank my wife for this early Christmas gift. She knew that I'd want to share it with the channel, so she let me open it early and share it with you guys. But 1650, yeah, it's nothing to sneeze at. Within that price point, you can get some really solid, mechanical timepieces. But for me, I'm looking forward to kind of explain to you guys why this really iconic timepiece really fits the bill and is definitely worth the price tag in my eyes. Now, with all that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. All right, now guys, this thing is gorgeous. Let's just appreciate that for a minute, and just in the design aspect, maybe not even the iconography that goes along with this, but just the fact that when I look at this, it's a piece of eye candy. I mean, they weren't kidding when they said in terms of those kind of design inspirations. A lot of people liken it to, of course, different types of Japanese mecha or mechs, and then as well as, just the general design philosophy. It reminds me a lot of kind of that Metal Gear Solid type of look. This is something that, or maybe even like G.I. Joe Snake Eyes, you could see him wearing, and this thing is insanely handsome. So this is an amazing aesthetic, but it also is quite capable as a functional tool. And of course, being a G-Shock, it really kind of embodies that whole functionality, shock resistant, durable, kind of ethos. Now, it is 43 millimeters in diameter, 13 millimeters thick, and about 49 millimeters lug to lug. Although you can see that first link does extend. It's not fully articulated until past that first link. So some of you might think, oh man, that's when I have to count the lug to lug. But I mean, where does it stop if you start counting the end link arm as the lug to lug of the actual watch case? So I'm going to go ahead and stick with the fact that this is 49 millimeters lug to lug. It is fully titanium in terms of its construction, with a black DLC coat, of course. The sapphire crystal is fantastic and does have anti-reflective coating, so you're going to be mitigating any type of glare, and it's going to stay quite legible for the most part. Now, in terms of the bracelet, you're getting integrated lugs, of course. It's titanium. It has about a 25 millimeter kind of flared first link that tapers down to about 19 millimeters as you get close to the clasp. The clasp is about 20 millimeters with a push button folding fully milled scissor section there, and then you do get manual micro adjust holes available. Also, something to note about this piece is that it does have a very cool mixture of glossy and matte finishes. You can see here on the bezel, it is quite glossy, and also on the buttons, very glossy as well. Also very nice to see more red accents there. And then even if you just look at generally at the sides here of this of the bracelet, it's going to be glossy versus matte, and then it also does have some very nice chamfering done there, as you can see, that catch the light in different ways. Also, something that differs on this model is that it does have the drilled through holes within the bracelet, which add for more weight savings, but also I think a very cool aesthetic that tie in to this particular model really well. Also, another very desirable feature is that screw down case back versus being a screw in case back, which is just more premium in construction in general. And man, this thing is just cool. Check that out. Again, you have all the specs there, module information. You even get a little diagram on both sides in terms of, which end to push the pin and collar system through here, as well as it kind of giving you the order of the linkage there from that top one. So this thing is just gorgeous. It speaks to me, guys. It definitely has a really great aesthetic, and I'm blown away by the fit and finish on this one, especially considering that it is titanium, so it is lighter, but it still is quite balanced. It still feels a lot more substantial than your average G-Shocks. This is like the $40 variation you can get now today. This is very bare bones. Of course, this one is going to have like a 10-year battery versus this being kind of forever good. So this is about 40 bucks, and then for close to about 100, you can have it with solar power. And then I believe you can get, it'll also have kind of the multi-band setup. And then for about $200, you can get something with a resin style bracelet that will actually give you the Bluetooth option as well on top of all the other features. And then of course you can get around to 400 or so, between 4 and 6. You can kind of get those steel models, and then you get upwards of, you know, $1,600 when you start getting into the titanium models. But you can see it has a very similar profile, of course, and that is by design, and it has a very similar wear on wrist, except, I mean, this just feels extremely premium by comparison. So this is my son's G-Shock, by the way. I gave it a quick little scrub down with a toothbrush and some water so I could have it in the video. But you can see very, very nice, you know, classic, again, a true icon on the wrist. You can see here, guys, I mean, it's definitely a great look. But with that said, you know, why don't I actually get this piece on the wrist so we can see how it wears. All right, guys, as you can see on my 7¼ inch wrist, it wears really beautifully. Check that out. I mean, classic G-Shock. And I love that it's kind of this subtle flex, guys. Like, people who genuinely know G-Shocks will know what this is. And people that don't will still know what a G-Shock is. And it's a cool looking watch. And as somebody that, of course, spent quite a few of my years in the Marine Corps, I enjoy just tactical products. And I mean, this thing looks like a serious piece of kit. This is exactly the type of watch, of course, price wise, a little bit more up there than what I would wear in terms of when I'd be out at the range or anything like that, or, you know, out on deployment. But could it do the job? Does it fit the bill? Absolutely, guys. This thing just feels so premium on the skin, and a lot of that has to do, of course, with the titanium construction, as well as the fit and finish, the overall design, and that articulation. It's just, it hits so many points, right? It has the retro vibe going for it again, and the nostalgia vibe going for it, and then, you know, it just, again, I think of icons like your, you know, Air Jordan 1s. There's something about those original designs. Of course, the Jordan brand was built on that, and they had a lot of great releases after that, but that original design is just something special. And this G-Shock Square design, again, resonates with me in a similar way. It just evokes a lot of those kind of intangibles that I really, it gets me excited about this piece, and I love that it exceeds my expectations, because my expectation is this, and it's a solid piece of gear, right? I just have this idea of what this should feel like and what this is, and then like I put on this, and it just provides another level of wear experience, another level of premium to something that visually I already adore. It just takes it to a whole nother level, which I really dig. This thing is really fantastic. I'm not gonna lie, guys, this is like probably one of my favorite watches, and that's nuts because I have so many watches and so many of them are mechanical. It really takes a special watch for me to really commit to how much I love this thing. And it's up there. This thing is, again, it's iconic. It's just premium and glorious. So with that said, let's go ahead, get some lume shots, low light transition, and then get into some closing thoughts. Oh, okay, guys, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. Of course, this doesn't have any lume, so I'll need the light on so I can share with you guys the electric luminescence. As you can see, very nice, very legible, quite fantastic. So with that, we'll actually get some low light transition just to give you an idea of what this watch renders like in mixed lighting conditions, because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. Of course, I don't want to black out too much because this is a blacked out watch, but you can see very sharp in terms of that display. And then even if I get into some harsher lighting here, which typically would expose any type of imperfections, this thing looks gorgeous. that finishing is fantastically applied. I have to say the DLC on there is gorgeous. So again, I probably can't do too much in a way in the way of you're getting your loom and low transition, but this thing's gorgeous, guys. It's a joy on the wrist, and you kind of can forget it is on the wrist. It would be easier to forget it's on the wrist if it wasn't so darn cool looking, but you're basically wearing a toy on your wrist. Like you're taking Optimus Prime with you everywhere you go. This thing it's just that cool. It just ties in to that, kind of playful nature, of course, of G-Shock, as well as just, from a collector standpoint, it really resonates with me, in my age range, in my age group. I mean, G-Shocks came around the same time I was born in '83. So this is a very sentimental piece to me. And of course, it being a Christmas gift from my wife, even more so. But let's get into closing thoughts, guys. On the wrist, it wears very similar to any other classic G-Shock square, but this feels infinitely more premium, and it honestly looks a lot more premium when compared to even the more basic, $600 stainless steel full metal squares. In terms of model variants, you do have various options within the steel line, and there's only a few within kind of the titanium variations. But for me, this does appear, in my eyes, to be the cream of the crop in terms of the most desirable, because it's not just true to the original form, which there are models that are a little bit more true to form to the original. This, to me, it's just net positive. Everything that it does adds to it. So it really elevates it to me in terms of its desirability. In terms of comparable models, honestly, I've been eyeing Casio's premium Oceanus line for more high-end options from the brand, but I really haven't ended up pulling the trigger, mainly because of their analog layout. I mean, I typically find myself skewing towards mechanical or solar quartz options from other brands like Seiko or Citizen when I start getting into that similar price point. So for me, this really hits that sweet spot. It gives you that iconic in-house aesthetic, which as a watch collector, in-house is where it's at. And then it's executed to a very high level. From a name that offers a ton of brand recognition. Now, people understand, they've seen G-Shocks. G-Shocks have been featured in various movies and across really just pop culture in general. I mean, people, whether it's music, whether you're watching YouTube and you see somebody reviewing a car, you can see a bright G-Shock on their wrist a lot of the times, or, it's your favorite hip-hop artist. So, I mean, G-Shocks are just pretty well loved around, and they just... There's something about them, so you have a certain level of street cred that actually crosses over between the casual population as well as hardcore enthusiasts alike. And this model really embodies the ultimate iteration of their iconic square silhouette. So yeah, I mean, I really love this thing as a watch collector, as well as someone just who appreciates having nice things. So it hits on a lot of different levels. Like, if I wasn't a big watch guy, I would still love this thing. And even before I was super into watches when I was in the Marine Corps, I had some really fun, JDM G-Shocks that were really nice that I love, that I kind of wish I would have treated a little bit nicer along the way, so they would still be kind of more wearable today. But something like this would have absolutely stood the test of time. And actually, I imagine this watch as something that once it does pick up some patina, some wear and tear, this thing's probably going to look even cooler. I could easily see this getting kind of, you think of something like Boba Fett, right? That finish, that kind of things have been brushed and polished off, and surfaces and beat and mangled. This thing is going to look gorgeous after it gets worn out and worn in. So I don't know if I'll be the guy to do that, because it is such a sentimental piece, but it's something to where, like, let's say I was still active duty. Oh my gosh, this thing would take on some glorious patina and just wear and tear and tell a story. And this is a watch that can take that, beating and still tell that story, which I think is fantastic. So if you have a loved one and you're looking for something for them, I think this is a great gift idea if it's within that range and it's something so different that maybe not a lot of people would buy it for themselves. But receiving this, holy smokes, man! Like I was socks knocked off. Very thrilled to have this piece in the collection. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you like the video, please do hit like, and if you haven't already, please do subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.